My name is Nick Alvarado. I'm a firefighter paramedic with the Schaumburg Fire Department. I've been on for just under 8 years now. I'm here today to show how to cook arracheras, which is a popular Mexican dish. When I first started on the fire department, I had no idea how to cook at all. This was the first dish that I made at the firehouse. My dad was a Chicago fireman, and so when I needed to cook something, I went to him for direction, and he wrote out the recipe himself for me. It's been requested multiple times throughout the years. Since then, I've changed things and tweaked here and there, but essentially at its core, it's still the same recipe that my dad gave me. Growing up, this was a dish that we had in my house all the time, throughout the summer, frequently, constantly barbecuing with the family. Any major family event throughout the year, my dad was always grilling this, even winter, during Christmas, or during the 4th of July during the summer. So right here, I have the arrachera. It's sitting, or a skirt steak in English. It's sitting in the marinade. What I do with the meat is I just like to season it with salt and pepper on both sides. And then I mix together white onion and cilantro, just toss it together in a bowl. And then when I stack the meat in the actual dish, in between each layer of meat, I will pour in a bunch of the cilantro and onion mix. Then I just take a bunch of lime juice and just pour it in the dish until the meat is covered in the lime juice. You would want to sit this and marinate for about 6 to 8 hours before you cook it. I started marinating this last night. By the time I cook it, it'll be in there for about 12 to 14 hours total. And this is occasionally just making sure that the beans are not burning to the pans. So this, all I do for that is just a couple of cans of refried beans, toss them in a pan, and then make the flame really low and just let it simmer. If it does start to boil at all, then a lot of times I'll just turn off the flame itself and then come back and turn it on just to heat it up again. And this, we're just waiting for the rice to boil, and then eventually the water will cook down, and then we'll just cover that and let that sit for probably about 20 minutes or so. I'm just pulling the leaves off, the stems. Still probably gonna end up getting some stems in there, which isn't that big of a deal. So once everything's in here, I like to kind of toss it around. So not only is it like the taste that I'm going for, but it's also a look, just by looking at the colors. I kind of have an idea already of what the ratio between like green, white, and the red would look like. And we're just gonna sprinkle some salt in there. And some pepper too. And cut up some limes. If you wanted to make it spicy, you could add some peppers or something, whether it's jalapeno or serrano peppers. With the serranos, you really also don't need to use a ton of peppers for that to get that nice spice in it. The rice is done cooking, and now I'm just adding a little more vegetable oil to it. So a lot of times when you're cooking rice, at the end it always says to simmer on low for the last like 10 or 15 minutes or so. What I actually do is I take it off the stove and I cover it up and I just let it sit there. But if you do it that way, by taking it off the stove and just covering it up, it'll continue to cook, and then you also avoid possibly burning the bottom of the rice and then getting rice stuck into the pot. Now I'm just gonna toss in some cilantro. We got a lot of rice in here, so I'm gonna go a little heavy. And the same thing too, like I said earlier with the pico de gallo, like I have an idea of the color that I want to get in here with the white versus the green. Now we'll squeeze in some limes. And then we'll toss that again. Now we can just let that sit until we're ready to eat. There are two different types of skirt steaks, the cuts. There's inner and then there's outer. The inner, it's thinner. When you toss it on the grill, you could have it done cooking in about maybe 4 minutes. And then the outer, it's a little thicker, definitely more tender than the inner skirt steak. It takes a little more time on the grill to cook the outer skirt steak. Either way though, it still cooks pretty fast in less than 10 minutes or so. And when you do turn the grill on, before you cook this meat, you wanna make sure that it's really hot. And that's gonna get it that real nice char on the outside of the meat as well. And right now the grill's about like 680 degrees. And we're just gonna go ahead and pick up the pieces and just toss them on there. probably gonna leave it on this side for maybe another minute or so to make sure that it gets a nice char. I kind of look at also the top of the meat while it's cooking. Once the juices really start to come through and pool on the meat, then that's kind of like my sign that I use to flip the meat. Yeah, those juices are coming through now, so it's a good time to flip. It's pretty charred on the outside, but again though, with this meat, it's thicker. So I personally like it when it's charred like this, but it's gonna be still really nice, juicy and tender in the middle. If you do the inner skirt steak that's thinner, just be careful with not getting it too charred, because since it's so thin, it won't be as juicy in the center compared to the outer skirt steak. And we'll let that sit for a few minutes too. So now that that's done cooking on the grill, all we gotta do is just chop it up so we can make some tacos. And again, I know it looks like some of these pieces are really charred on the outside, but once you get to the middle, you can see that it's still pretty tender. I'm just gonna take a scoop of the rice, pop it on a plate right there, and then take some of the meat. Put that right there. And then take some of the pico de gallo, sprinkle it on, drizzle a little of this chipotle mayo. And the last thing I'm gonna do is just get some beans. There you go, it's just nice and easy, simple Mexican dish.